Today I want to show you guys some of the most popular axes where I am. Now, regionally, that would be a Jersey pattern, something like this, or let's see, maybe a Dayton pattern, which is something like this, but especially this brand, a Plum. Plum is big in the Northeast, and actually throughout the world probably, but mostly in America, in the United States. This is a special one. This is a Permabond, so that means that it's got epoxy. It's probably after the not probably, the chainsaw had already been invented by this time, but this is a particularly nice one. It's got a 3-pound weight stamp, which is a size Dayton pattern I don't see a lot, and it still has a little bit of that sticker on it. But unfortunately, a shark had its way with this bad boy. The mayor, the goddamn mayor. I keep telling the mayor, wherever Jaws was, I keep telling the mayor, hey, we got a shark problem here. And the mayor's like, keep using your axes in the water. Fucking mayor. That's probably one of the two most common patterns. And then the most common pattern, in my opinion, is the Michigan pattern. This is a nice one. This is a Plum Victory, which is a very popular brand, the Victory brand. It was post-World War II for, winning the war. I didn't put that in quotations because I'm like angry about anything. It just, world wars aren't exactly the most fun. And then here's a really popular hatchet. This is the Tommy axe, and it has a claw hammer on the back, which makes it not ideal for swinging when it comes to carving, because you can't really choke up as much as you want, maybe. It's okay, but not my favorite design for a carver, but, good for camping. I think that nail pullers were put on axes and hatchets, mostly hatchets, because people would go camping and they'd kind of set a nail into a tree and leave a little bit out, and then they could just easily pull that nail out. That's what I've heard the nail pullers are for. If you put a nail all the way into the tree, obviously you can't hang much on it. And then you can't get it out easily either. So that's what this is for. Maybe. That's just what I've heard. This Jersey pattern, I didn't really say. This is a Keen Cutter, which is an extremely popular brand. Didn't get much more popular than that. Now, when it comes to value, people really value these axes. And it has the bevels, which is another very popular thing that some axes have. Then we have a special axe. This is a rafting pattern, but it's only 3 pounds. You don't really see these. As a huge pull, massive pull. It's also a 3-piece axe, which means that there's a high carbon steel insert here and a high carbon insert here on the pole. So this is harder, and this is softer right here. And it's also overlaid, which means that the high carbon steel was put on top of a V. So imagine the rest of the axe is going in here and it's a V. And then the high carbon insert goes up around that and they forge it on. I just got dust in my eye. And then we have one of my favorite patterns, the Rockaway pattern. This is a very special axe. It's named after Rockaway, New Jersey, where the McKinnons used to make it, but this axe has been around since the 1700s, supposedly. Maybe it didn't have as big of a pole, though, until the mid-1800s. That's when American axes became popular. Well, American axes started to have a larger pole and a shorter bit in the mid-1800s, and that might have been because we were working on really big and really tough timber, and those thin European, called a colonial trade axe, the small pole and the long bit didn't have maybe the balance was wrong, but you could certainly say that if it had a really long, thin bit, it was getting stuck in that big hard timber. So that's kind of what we think. We think what happened. Now I read this in a talk from 1979 from Bob Fridlington. We think what happened was, well, I read this in an article about a talk, maybe, or maybe, you know what? No, I read this in an article. I'll put it right here. The American axe, was it better? So what is theorized? What happened was that people use their axes so quickly. If you're working in the timber industry, maybe not homeowners, but you never know. They were using their axes so quickly, they were sharpening it over and over and over again, that they felt the balance changing with the stubbier bit, and they might have told a blacksmith, hey, I like it this way, can you maybe do that? And so they started experimenting with the heavier pole and the stubbier bit, and the axes were more balanced, and people liked that a lot, and it just got very popular. And that is an American, I wouldn't say invention, but maybe discovery. But you know, the blacksmiths did it. You know, they invented it basically. You can see large pole axes throughout history, but in the mid 1800s, you know, 1830 to 1860 maybe, that's when it really came to be that those axes were manufactured a lot. And it became the norm in America. Here's something I don't really like. I think this is a Hudson Bay. It has this little funk going on here, which is almost like a Rhineland pattern, but pretty sure this is a Kelly Wood Slasher, which Wood Slasher is a very popular brand. There was millions of those axes made. And the reason why I don't really like the Hudson Bay is because of this short pole. It's the same thing as short eye, you know, it's the same level. So there's not a lot of friction to hold that axe onto the handle. And so these loosen up really easily. And while it's nice for light work, I don't like them at all for heavy work. So if you want to cross cut a lot, I don't think I recommend this one. There is an improved Hudson Bay pattern called the tall pole. Council Tool, which is a very popular maker of axes that's still going, they make a tall pole. Definitely wouldn't say that's a bad idea. That design, that seems like a good idea. I haven't tried it, but it looks pretty good. Looks like an all-purpose axe, not exactly like a cutting axe, but all-purpose. And this one is definitely a cutting axe. It's very thin. Here's a really popular axe here. This is the Kelly Perfect. Don't mind the handle. This is a Killinger handle that I didn't shape the shoulder well enough. It's still way fatter than the axe head, and that's a big no-no, because when you actually put the axe in wood, this will get marked up and it'll get scratched and abraded, and you know, splinters will happen. So you always want the shoulder to be thinner, just a little bit thinner than the actual metal of the axe, so it's protected by that metal. But this is a very popular axe. Not this pattern, but this branding of axe, the Perfect. It always has the jet wings, and actually, or just bevels. We'll call these bevels. And actually, the first one, the Kelly Perfect in the late 1800s, is a beautiful, beautiful axe. Very historical, very popular, but you know, not super common. So if you could find one, the old ones, you know when you see them, that's a special axe, and you know, if you can get a good deal on that, you're a lucky guy. I would love to find one of those one day. And here's actually not really an axe, it's more of a hatchet, but just imagine this is bigger. Oh, I do actually have another one, but doesn't matter. This is a national pattern. Right now, this is a very popular axe. I think guys that throw axes like these, which is unfortunate because what they do is they thin it until it's not an axe anymore. It's just for throwing. In my opinion, I don't mind the guys that do that for a living, that make it for a living, because they got to make money. And you know, it's hard to make money off of modifying or making axes, and that's a niche. So I don't harbor any ill will towards those guys. I actually know some really good guys. I'm thinking of one in particular, really good guys that do that stuff. It's the people that want to take old axes and ruin them. ruined. They bother me a little bit, but you know they don't know. They're not into the They're not into the history. They're not into the value of the actual axe and preserving that value like me. So I understand both sides, you know. But if I were to say, well, you know what? Here's the thing. So every time they ruin one of these special axes, the ones that are still left over are worth a little more. So, you know, whatever you want to, however you want to take it, it is unfortunate. But, you know, for me, I don't need to own an axe that's really cool. All I want to do is swing them most of the time or touch them and get to like kind of check them out. That's enough for me. When people gift me an axe, I'm like, wow, you didn't need to do that, but I do obviously really appreciate that. I actually should have gotten the Lincoln axe. That's a really popular but sought after axe that I have that I was gifted to cheer me up in a tough time. Here's a really cool one. This is a Rixford, which is another very popular brand up north, northeast. This is a 4-pound Rixford. It has the stamp, and it's also looks like a two-piece. Yeah, I can see that it's a two-piece right here. And I believe there's a date on this. Let's see. This is an R46, so 1946, right after the war. And this is a handle I reshaped that's, it's okay. It's not that good. You can see I kind of did some weird stuff with the palm swat. I could make that better. But this is a little chunky monkey. It is a Dayton pattern, and it's one of the blockier looking Dayton patterns I've seen. Really interesting axe. A popular brand that, depending on where you are, there's going to be a lot of them or not any of them. Or you know, very few of them. Now, this is a double bit that we'll talk about double bits in a little bit, but this is one of the more popular double bits. It's called a cruiser axe, which means it's around 2.5 pounds. It could be, you know, give or take a quarter pound. Very, very, very fun axe to swing. It almost feels like a toy in your hands compared to larger axes. And it's just so controllable, so balanced. Kind of what I was talking about with the large poles on an American axe. It's the same weight here as it is here. So it's extremely balanced. You can swing it any way you want, and it feels pretty much the exact same. You could fell with it. You know, you could split with it. You could limb with it. Although these are a little bit narrow, these bits. So you could buck with it, but this is actually a plum, a very old plum. Here's the stamp right here. This is a very old plum, maybe the 30s, maybe the 20s, maybe even before that. And it looks like the handle is original, which is super cool. This has been really taken care of. It's just about a 1/16 of an inch recessed. Like, this thing is still tight. Still tight. And it's a beautiful axe. I already showed that one. Here's another Dayton pattern. But the reason why I'm showing this one is because it is a True Temper Kelly Works Flint Edge. Very popular brand, sort of like the Wood Slasher, but maybe a little more higher end. I'm not really sure. The Wood Slashers had a lot of sticker labels and not a lot of branding. So to me, that means they're a little more of a hardware store axe. Now, this is probably still a hardware store axe. Beautiful handle. It's probably standard, but I actually don't think it was standard. I think this handle was matched poorly, and then I kind of redid it. But this is a really nice axe. It has the 4 stamp on the pole, which means 4 pounds. Just make sure if you're cleaning up an axe, and really there's not much to clean up. If it has a little rust, be more cautious than proactive, because you could take away some of that value. If you didn't know that there's a stamp on here, you could wear it away with a wire wheel. Even a soft wire wheel that you know is softer than this metal can wear away a very light stamp really quickly. So this has a really deep branding. Beautiful little axe. But it is a Dayton pattern, which, like I said, one of the most common patterns. For me, it's between the Dayton and the Michigan. And I'd say the Michigan is probably more common. but that's, you know, that's not based on anything. Now here's a very, very popular axe. This is a double bit, right? I think it's a reversible pattern, so it kind of looks upside down, but it could be either way, I believe. But this is a Legitimus, which to me was my first special brand. I thought, ooh, the Collins Legitimus, that's a really special axe. I want one. I did end up getting one, and I put it on a Killinger Adirondack handle. Pretty nice handle. Very nice, actually. I don't really like Adirondack handles for double bits, because then when I flip it the other way, when I try to use it the opposite way, it feels a little awkward. The swell is a little awkward in reverse. Kind of like how you have a wedge banger will have a straight handle. That's because it's not as comfortable when it's a curved handle and you use it. You're using the hammer pull, or the pull on the back, as a hammer. Here's my favorite Michigan pattern. This is a user. This is a man Michigan pattern with some really pretty bevels. You can see it's pretty heavily used. It's dirty. Another mulberry wedge that I have in there. This is a white oak handle. So when it comes to the most popular handles, it's going to be hickory, and that's for a good reason, because hickory is the strongest. You know, a lot of that old handles you'll find are hickory because they last and they take a beating. If you overstrike this axe, it's not going to like it very much. It'll dent, it'll abrade, it'll splinter a little bit, but you know, it's actually not that bad. This white oak that I have is pretty good. But, you know, this is a very popular axe. And when it comes to grinding, when it comes to the edge on an axe, to me, the banana grind is the best. And this is one of my best banana grinds early on. This thing just works. It doesn't stick very well. It just works. It just works incredibly well. And it's a pretty axe too. I probably should get rid of the mushrooming, but I just haven't needed to. You know, I'm not bucking 20-inch diameter wood where this matters too much. But you know, maybe it will one day. Here's another Legitimus, pretty popular because it's a Michigan pattern. But look how ugly this is. I was redoing this handle and I didn't get done, you know, I didn't like finish. It's still rough. I don't need to show you more Michigans or Legitimus patterns, or Legitimus axes though. Here's a really popular one. I don't know if it's exactly a Maine axe, but you know, I kind of think of those as a similar thing. The Maine axes in New England, they're kind of similar. So this is maybe New England, but to me it's very similar to a Maine axe or a wedge pattern. It has the wedgy, you know, profile. Beautiful axe. I love Maine axes. They are very popular. Maine axes are extremely popular. They have a lot of lure. There was a big timber industry in the Northeast up there, the Northeast, and Maine was, you know, a real pioneer. They had some amazing makers, and they put out some great axes. Oh yeah, this is the one that I put a dowel in. And then, you know, I actually have one more axe I want to show after this, which is a very similar axe. And then we have the Tasmanian pattern. This is an Australian axe that was made in America, I believe. And they're just gorgeous axes. These are made for bucking and felling some of the toughest big timber you'll ever see. Australia had some crazy stuff. Now, it's also kind of the same thing as a race axe. It's a racing axe. Not the same, but similar. Just a little bit more of a home, you know, kind of a homestead axe than a race axe. They were probably a little lighter and not quite as wide in the bit. And this one actually has some rust on it. I got to clean that up. Not sure if you can see that. But this is a High Test, which is probably one of the more popular brands for a Tasmanian pattern. They also had Plum. They had Kelly's. They had Key Steel. I forget what that's called, but there's a Kangaroo. That one's a really cool one. Oh, yeah. Now this is a really cool one. This is an octagonal handle that I was given by Cheap Guillotines or Cheap Axe Guillotines. I think Cheap Guillotines on Instagram. Really nice guy. James P. Man, I think it's called. Very old axe. It's a Connecticut pattern, which is one of the most popular patterns. And the reason why it's different than a Tasmanian pattern is because it has a much bigger pole. The pole is bigger, and it also is a tapering pole. So when I say tapering pole, that means that it's close to the eye. It's as fat as it's going to be, and then it gets thinner and thinner and thinner until it gets to its thinnest point right at the end. Now, sometimes you'll see these where it's mushroomed and you can't really tell. It makes it harder to tell. This axe had mushrooming and it was fixed. But it looks really, really beautiful. It's made in Lewistown, and it has that anchor. I didn't know that Mans could have that anchor until I saw this axe. So anyway, those are some of the most popular and common axes in America. I just wanted to mention, I forgot one here. This is a Scout hatchet. Very popular little axe. This is a Boy Scouts of America Scout hatchet. And this pattern, you can see it throughout a lot of brands. I'm not sure if Plum started this one, but remember what I talked about with the nail pullers? A lot of these Scout hatchets had these nail pullers. This is actually a genuine Plum Boy Scout. And it had the take-up screw, which I think means it's from the 30s. And look at this beautiful original handle. And it even has some initials on it, so a little kid used to really take care of this. So it's a special one. I haven't touched it, I haven't wedged it. I did take the takeout screw out, and that's pretty much it. I thought I missed a few things, and I wanted to go over them. There's going to be a lot more access here. That was basically part 1, but this is kind of like part 1.1 because there's going to be some similarities. So this is a wood slasher, and I know that because of the eye ridges. And this is a Michigan pattern. To me, this is the most common axe in America, so it's sort of like the most popular axe just because there were so many produced. You can see it kind of has a rounding to the back here. And honestly, when they have a full bit, they look pretty good, don't they? Let's turn around the other way. That looks pretty good. Here's another Michigan pattern. Just a common axe. I mean, same kind of rounding to the pole. Not the same, but similar. And as you can see, it has a pretty full bit, and that doesn't look too bad. But when they're worn, they do start to look kind of, I wouldn't say bad, but not as good. And so here's a Plum. Here's a Plum 3.2. This is the most common weight. When it comes to popularity, 3.5 pounds. That is the most popular axe just because that's the most common one. Now look at this. Because this has a bevels and it's a little bit longer in the bit, it looks pretty damn nice. I don't know who the maker is, but it looks really good with these bevels. I love it. If you want to see just how bad an axe can look when it's worn. This is a Michigan pattern. Look how awful that is. Look at all that toe wear. Really poor. I almost forgot, probably the most common axe nowadays, and by osmosis, the most popular, the splitting axe, the maul. This isn't a splitting axe, this is a splitting maul. It has a maul hammer on the back, really nice one too. And it has a splitting bit on the front. And it has a thick profile so it doesn't get stuck. And it also weighs a good deal, so it'll split that tougher stuff. And this is about a 6-pounder. This is a Craftsman. It says wear safety goggles. You'll see that on kind of post chainsaw axes and splitting mauls. But there's the Craftsman right there. Craftsman is a very common axe, and you could say popular. You'll see that popularity and just how many of them were produced is kind of one and the same. I didn't really talk much about etching because these are very popular. This is a Plum Anchor brand, one of my best etches. This is another Scout pattern, but this one's very old. I'd say it's got to be 20s to 40s. That's just a guess. You could look on yesteryear tools to see. You might be able to figure it out. This is one of my first handles that is okay. It's not good, but it's okay. And I think it's pin oak. And the wedge seems to be white oak. Nice little edge on it. You could use this to carve. A little bit too proud for my liking nowadays. And here is what everybody flattens with. This is a single bevel hewing hatchet, which means the back is flat and the front has about a 25-degree angled bevel. And these are great for flattening because it has a straight bit and it'll dig in a little easier, so your angle can be more shallow. And then here's probably the most common axe ever made. It's a hatchet. It's the half hatchet. Millions and millions and millions of these. And the reason why I think that is just because they're just so cheap. There has to be so many of them. When you live in an area, a good area for finding antiques, you find so many of these. And this one's really cool. It says handmade 1914. This is a really special one. But a very, very common pattern. Mostly I was talking about patterns. Well, some of it was patterns before. I do want to clarify. When I was talking about this rafting pattern, this 3-pound rafting pattern is not popular. It's not common. Nobody has this. But I was trying to talk about the pattern. Rafting patterns are very popular, and you could tell that by the price they go on. Well, they go for. Big old pull on this bad boy. Here's that similar Plum Anchor brand. It's a little different. This is a very sought after and popular etch, so it's worth a good deal of money. But it's on a really worn, I actually think this is a Connecticut pattern, which is very popular. Yeah, it is. See how it tapers? So where my thumbs are now, it's thicker, and then it gets thinner and thinner and thinner. And this is definitely a Connecticut pattern, just worn to shit. But this will make a nice little kindling axe, honestly. It's a little thick in the bevel right now, but yeah, not bad. And it has the star. Here's a very popular brand. So it's Warren, Sager Chemical, Warren. I believe they came together at some point. It says USA, and it's a 4-pounder. It's a big long bit. This is a felling axe. Beautiful bevels on it. These are very popular. These bevels, I believe you could get away with calling these Yankee bevels. Maybe someone even did this after the fact. I don't know. Because it looks kind of, let's see if it's even. No, it's not very even. Maybe someone did this post-production. No, it looks pretty good, honestly. It's a little dug in more here, though. But these are very popular axes. And honestly, this is a beauty. This is a nice Dayton pattern. In Europe, they call every single Dayton pattern. Everything that looks like a Dayton pattern is a Yankee. Which maybe this is a Yankee. I have no idea the difference, really. But the Dayton pattern is the more common one, at least in name in America. Here is a good representation of a wedge, and it's Snow and Neely. Snow and Neely is a very popular brand. They still make axes, but not like they used to. And this just goes to show these main axes. It's not a wedge it's not a main wedge. It's just a wedge pattern. But it just goes to show they're usually pretty thin when they're full in the bit. This is a full bit, and very cool. It has a 3 3/4 weight stamp. Very nice. You see that flare? So it's a continuous wedge. It keeps going and it keeps going until the very end at the pole where it just stops. So maybe that's why they call it a wedge pattern. I have no idea. I'm not a Maine historian. This was a little oversight. When I talked about jersey patterns, I really should have mentioned this. This is the Plum round lug jersey pattern. It's not a Rockaway pattern because the pole is not short and there's no curve in the bit, although there does seem to be a curve, but that's because there was a break. Let's see if I can get that to focus. Yeah, that's just a little break. So these are very common. As you can see, it's a plumb. Kind of hard to read, but it's still there. Really nice bucking axes and limbing axes. And this is a 3.5, which is very common and very, very popular. Now let's look at so a big oversight here again. I forgot the Swedish axes. Now mostly I'm talking about what I know, which is American axes, or what I know more about. But this is a Holzbruch, a whole double bit. Now it is American. It's styled after American axes. But I just wanted to bring up, you know, Grans 4s and Holzbruchs and Holtefors. I guess Holtefors, and they might be one of those might be the same as the other. But look at this. It's a beautiful 3.5 pounder. 1.5 kilo. Really nice. Cool handle too. I did want to talk about handles. This is not the most popular handle. This is the most popular handle. This is a 30-inch handle, and this is your do it all, especially cross cutting. We love these kinds of handles for cross cutting. We don't want 32, 34, 36. That's too long for cutting, unless you're like felling the biggest trees, and nobody does that anymore. So if you ever wonder what's maybe the handle for me, if I want to cut timber, think about that 30, because it is the most popular. It's also the most bent when it's this exact handle, which is this is my template for almost every axe I make. At least every axe with a 30-inch handle. And finally, I thought that it would be a good idea to actually show a Hudson Bay pattern that I know of. This is a Snow Annealy. I think it's a 1 3/4. It's hard to see, but yeah, you can see it. 1 3 4. 1 3/4. I think I'm seeing that right. Yeah. So this is a Snow Annealy too, supposedly from the 70s. Look how short that eye is and that pole is. And this comes loose. So either I didn't do it correctly, or what I said was correct about it coming loose very easily. This is a really cool little handle here. This is red oak. I let it not mold, but I let fungus get in there. So I let this sit for a while. And when you do that, the sapwood gets gray. And I really like that look. This is a little blue from, you know, something stained it. But yeah, maybe I didn't hang this too good. Maybe we'll go back and do this again. But I really like the handle. I think I did a good job making this handle shape. So I want to do this justice. Maybe I'll even put something else on there, because I didn't do a good, that's not a very good grind. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys a few more. There's many very popular and common axes out there. Almost forgot this one. This is not a very common pattern. It's not a very popular pattern. Just because people don't know about it, not because it's not awesome. So it's probably a Southern Kentucky pattern. But this is why this is popular. Belknap Bluegrass. Very popular. So popular, people are breaking handles over this thing. They just can't get to it fast enough. I decided let's go to town on this thing. Let's do a part 1.2. I don't have any full-size axe versions of this, but this is a stiletto, which is a pretty prized branding. People really like this one, and it is pretty cool, honestly. It's an arrow with screwy dewey, couple arrows and a screwy dewey with some nice lettering. This one was pinned, unfortunately, but it's a really nice little carver I use. It's a 1 pounder, and I put it on my first mulberry handle a long time ago. Not the best, but pretty comfortable, especially up here. This is perfect. I thought it would be I thought it would be weird to mention Council Tool and not even show one. So here's a jersey pattern from Council Tool. Not really sure the date on this. It might even say it on the other side. Nope, it just says 3.5 pounds. So this is a mid-sized axe, very common. And I wouldn't say that this is the most popular axe in the world, but Council Tool is one of the more popular hardware store axes you can buy today. And when I say hardware store, it might not be in the hardware store where you buy them, but it's a hardware store price. So it's pretty reasonably priced. You might have to do a little bit of work rounding the inside of the eye to make sure there's no shelf. I actually forgot the word shelf on my last video. I was having a bad day, a bad memory day. I thought, I showed so many Michigan patterns. Why not just show a couple examples of some other ones that actually are extremely popular and not just very widespread. This is my favorite Connecticut pattern. This thing has got it going on. Look at the different metals here. You can see that this is obviously a two-piece axe. So when it comes to not doing a vinegar bath or electrolysis, one way you can tell that there's two pieces of steel is with the different kinds of patina. So you can see this is really rough, and this isn't so rough. And that's just how these pieces of metal rust. And then you convert that rust into a beautiful black patina like this one. Doesn't always happen like that. Let's see if we can get it overhead. Oh yeah. This was my first and most lovely user, and you could see it has a long tapering pole. It just has a little bit of mushrooming, so it's not perfect, but up until right here, you could tell this thing is a Connecticut pattern through and through. I actually found this on a house axe handle. I found it on something a lot like this. This might have even been the handle. And I didn't know what I had until I started, thinking about putting it on a handle. Beautiful user. Some of the greatest steel I've ever felt on an axe. Just supreme stuff. Look how rough it is. Look how rough I made it. And I just put a secondary bevel on it. And even with this kind of primitive grind, it is insanely good. Insanely good. And it's only like a 25-degree angle bevel. So this could be thinner, and it would definitely hold up because I sharpened it like once out of cords of wood. I mean, just doing a lot. I processed an entire tree with this thing. Not the whole process, but I limbed pretty much every limb that was smaller in size. All I had was a electric chainsaw, and so you know how long those batteries last, especially when it's the Walmart brand. So yeah, this thing got a lot of use, hours of use. I didn't even think about sharpening it. That's how good the steel is. You might say, why do you have a wedge? Well, I thought it was really cool that it says warranted. So I'm guessing it's a Warren. And basically a wedge is an axe without a hole for a handle. So this is the most primitive version of an axe. You hit this with a hammer and you split things open. You're not going to be doing any cross cutting with this, but wear safety. Oh, why is it not wear safety goggles? I think this is a 70s and 80s thing, but let me know if if it was in the 60s too. Remember when I brought up a Sager Warren earlier, Sager Chemical? Here's an absolutely beautiful bow tie. So this is a reversible pattern, and this is just a gorgeous axe. Very popular and sought after pattern. Maybe it's more niche. A lot of people don't know about it, but when it sells and people know what they're looking at, it should sell for quite a bit. You can see one edge is more straight, one edge has a little bit of rounding to it. I believe this was the dirty edge, because look how thick it is. And then this was the cutting edge. So the dirty edge is what you use on roots and in dirt. And this is the edge that you use for your cleanest cuts, like when you're bucking or limbing or felling. This is a really interesting axe because look how narrow the eye is, the height of the eye, compared to how wide the bits are. Very interesting. I thought it was silly to not have a video about highly sought after axes or popular axes and not show a damn double oval Craftsman. These aren't the hardest to find, but they're really nice. I really like these. This one has excellent steel. It's a really long Michigan pattern. Not the best angle here. It's a really long Michigan pattern. At this angle, it looks a little thicker than it actually is. Let me show you. Whoops. Let's see if I can get an angle here. You can see it's pretty long. And I got a little American sweet gum wedge in there. It looks like marble, doesn't it? Very cool stuff. Some of the only wood that has streaking in it in the Northeast. On Wood Database, they only have 4 timbers on there that does it, but I believe there's many more. And that's through mushroom fungus that happens. Now here's an absolutely gorgeous True Temper flint edge jersey pattern. It's not the original handle, but it's a True Temper, so someone did a handle match on here. You can see the huge shelf. I mean, I'm just guessing this is not the original handle. It does have just a wedge in. It does have just a wedge in, but yeah, you can see the 3 eye ridges here, and I think there's 3 on the other side. I can't really see. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Looking at the camera, so I can't really tell. But this is a beautiful axe, absolutely beautiful axe. Might have a pole stamp. It does. It's right here. Yeah, you can see it. 3.2. It's a 3.5 pound axe. It feels kind of light, honestly, but really pretty, really nice full bit. A little bit of damage, but very beautiful. And then let's talk about pre-1900 axes. Now, this is not a great example when it comes to this right here. It's a little bent in, and I'm not quite sure it's what I think it is, but it's similar to a pancake pattern, or a pancake axe, not a pancake pattern. The pancake axe is just really wide usually, so I don't think this is exactly a pancake, but it's in that same style. All the poles get really narrow, kind of taper. It's got a thick cheeks usually, stubby. They can look really stubby sometimes, but that's probably just wear. And you can see this is a little worn, but there's still a lot of good steel left on it. See the difference. And now here's what I think I really got to show, because let's be honest, Buckin' Billy Ray is one of the guys that's really influenced a lot of people when it comes to splitting axes. This is a Elwell 4.5 Tasmanian pattern. It is not a splitter, really. It's got a little bit of thickness in the cheeks, but this is pretty thin. This would be a heavy-duty chopping axe. You can see I cut this handle off because I didn't put it on a good handle. I didn't do a good hang. You can see that gap. So this will be a future project. And these are just super popular. And this is actually a pretty sought after one. I don't see a lot of these. And then here's one of my favorites. Oh my God. Look at this beautiful plum. Has branding on both sides. Plum Tasmanian pattern. You can tell it's not a Connecticut pattern because there's barely any pole. It is rounded as well. Now, some people will tell you, well, it's fat, so that means it's not a Connecticut pattern. But some Connecticut patterns were probably fat. There's probably not a lot out there that you could find easily, but that's not the way to tell them apart. But, you know, if it's fat, you can always think to yourself, maybe this is a Tassie. And then you look at the pole, and let's see, do I have a different? Yeah. I already did this once, but let's check it out again. Just look at the difference in the poles. I mean, this is a very long pole on the left. Very interesting. So a lot of that weight's in the back. That's why it's going to be thinner in the front from here up. You can see it's a good deal thinner. Let's try to line those bits up. Very interesting. This Tassie has a longer bit. So this is a stubby Connecticut pattern, probably pretty worn. You don't see that often. Tazzies that are longer than something else. But both very wide bits and really beautiful axes. So just a few more additions that I wanted to add. Very popular axis. I'll show my only double bit Craftsman, which is another double oval, but it's really worn. So just make sure that if you're trying to get a user, before we go, this is a really important thing. Now this handle's not made, you know, this got to be changed, this handle. But if you're looking for a user, don't just buy it for the brand. You don't want wear when you're buying a user. You want it to be full in the bit. Unless you're using it just for splitting, and the wear will help you out a little bit. It'll be a little thicker because it's worn. Here, let me. Yeah, if you want to just split with it, sure. Maybe this very short worn bit will be better. But if you want to cut with an axe, don't just buy it for the branding. It's popular for the branding, not for the design when it's worn, right? It was designed differently. So buy those axes with full bits. It should be like out to here, and it should be relatively straight. Just imagine this is up to here, this is up to here, and it kind of matches with the middle. Not all patterns are like that, but most patterns aren't this curved. So anyway, thanks for watching.